And the guy reaches into this floorboard. Well, he comes over on a flatbed truck, which comes over on me, pushes me into the grass. I mean, almost wrecks me out. And I'm like, I'm pissed. I'm a truck inspector at this time. So I go up and I go stop this bobtail truck. I get up there and I start basically getting on his butt, like, what are you doing? I dropped it. I'm sorry, And so 530,000 cash in a
Jeez.
duffel bag in an 18-wheeler.
So you got to ask yourself, why do you want to do this? What keeps you motivated to stay proactive and get bad guys off the street?
The facts is a big cannon against a little tiny gun of opinions, because we've all heard people give us their opinions.
Let's talk about how easy it is to get narcotics in this country.
Once they're in this country, anywhere within 2 days, the drugs will be in our cities.
Because we know knowledge is power.
In this podcast, I get to sit down with Ted Davis, a legendary Alabama interdiction officer, and now working for a great company with Viking. Their technology is, uncomparable to other technologies in the same field, with their X-rays and their detection devices, the Foxhound. It is absolutely amazing. So look back at his career and think that, anything negative about it. And he talked a little bit about it, the reason, I don't know if it's the only reason, it was a reason, and how things have changed and how the climate towards cops had changed and how it was, more of a negative atmosphere. I feel like law enforcement is often on a pendulum and it kind of swings back and forth. We're loved one day, maybe hated the next. But I don't know. It was a great conversation. He's a solid dude and still working within the interdiction community. So if you ever need anything from Viking, hit him up. Him or Mike Connor, George Dominguez, all amazing people. But it's the first time that I ever had a one-on-one conversation with Ted. So check it out. Let me know what you think. Better. There we go. That works. So how you doing, sir?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. I don't think I've ever met you, have I?
I believe we may have bumped into each other somewhere in a conference. You were
Yeah.
kind of getting started when I was just starting to get promoted and move back into like the patrol function and around all the different bureaus of the police department once I got promoted to lieutenant. So
I got you. So how's life with Viking?
oh, it's great. I'm blessed to work there. It's a good place. Make good products that we used for interdiction purposes, and I'm blessed to work with two good guys that the George and Mike, who fellow interdiction guys, and I feel very lucky to have a job there. So I worked all my years at Hoover and a couple of years with the county before I got going good, and then went over to Hoover and did 25 there, and then retired and walked off into the sunset. So here I am now, and this is great because it kind of keeps my foot in the door of something I really love to do. Interdiction was a great job. The best times were when it was just me and my dog when we first started. I think
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like you working for them still gives you that the connection to law enforcement. You're still talking to cops, especially interdiction.
Yes, absolutely. Seeing a lot of narcotics guys, a lot of interdiction guys, and traveling around the country and seeing guys doing the stuff that I used to do. So it's a blessing to be able to do that in retirement.
That's awesome. How often you traveling?
A lot. I just got back from Ohio yesterday, and a lot of just a quick trip up, do a training, and then turn around and come right back. Been all over the place. Been to Africa once already. I'm going to have to dive on the sword and go to the Cayman Islands here pretty soon for a class down there for the Royal Police. So that's going to be a nice trip. I look forward to that. We just got to get the details hammered out. So
Yeah, that would be cool to being able to travel to like around the world now with that stuff and having it pretty much, I'm assuming all paid for. So that's an awesome.
oh yeah, they take great care of us. Like I said, it's a blessing to work for a company that just takes good care of us. So
Yeah, Mike and Eric are gonna come to my class up in April. They're gonna be up in New York, and they're gonna come
okay,
to my class and do your presentation at lunch and stuff, and buy the guys lunch. So
that's great. That's great. Done a couple of those over the time, but it's good that we get to go back and do that some, so everybody gets to see what we have.
Cool.
Appreciate you inviting us.
Yeah, no, man. I've known Mike for years. Mike's, I don't know, awesome dude. Like I have nothing bad to say. Mike's been a very stable force in my life. When things happen and you're struggling, it's nice to have Mike as a voice of reason and realize that like everyone's been through the same shit that I'm bitching about or stressing about, So it's
Yeah.
nice to have someone that's like,
Yeah. Oh,
yo, it's gonna be
absolutely.
okay.
Yeah. It's great to work with guys that when you call them, you're talking to somebody. It's just like you're just a team automatically because you've done the same stuff. You've had the same heartache and headache and all the same stuff that goes with this job that, sometimes it wears on you a little bit, but it's good to have somebody you can talk to and know they've been through it. So,
Yeah, for sure. So the way that this kind of set up, I mean, my motive behind all of this podcast is, I feel like interdiction has the potential of going away, and whether that is the motivation of the young officers, if that's the knowledge not being passed down, or the relying on technologies, and you're kind of losing that interpersonal communication. But so I'll sit back and let you talk, and then I'll interrupt you occasionally.
well, I will start off from the beginning. I come from a law enforcement family. My granddad was a deputy. My dad was a deputy. My uncles were deputies. My cousins are deputies. They all work for Jefferson County Sheriff's Office here in Alabama. And that's where I started. One of my fraternity brothers from college called me, and I was about 2 years in, and he said, "Hey, Hoover's about to give the test." And he worked there, and he said, "It's a good place to work." He said, "I don't know if you're interested," but he said, "Come on and take a test." So I had always sworn I would never be a policeman because that I just saw how my dad had to work. He worked a lot of hours, a lot of off duty work. He was a deputy and he did like 34 years before he retired. And he was like, it's a good gig. You got to be smart. Don't do stupid stuff, and you'll always have a job because there's always going to be stuff for law enforcement out there. So that was good advice in the very beginning. But I went to UAB and studied nursing. I got a nursing degree, got a BS in nursing. And when I got out of school, as I was just about to graduate, Bill Clinton had been elected about a year or so into my nursing school thing, and they weren't hiring a lot of nurses. So I said, I will just try to get a job as a fireman or policeman or something, and get a job in the stopgap until they start hiring again, and I'll do that. And I got luckily, Birmingham Police Department and Jefferson County Sheriff's Office were trying to hire me pretty quick in that process through the civil service testing, and Jefferson County hired me. I said, the first guy that offers me a job, I'm going to take. I just gotten married, been married a little bit, and I had a kid on the way, and I was like, I've got to grow up. I'm done with school. It's time to be a big boy. So I took the job. They put me on the car for a couple of weeks, and then they moved us to the jail after that. But we got to go out and do some policing, and I was like, this is awesome. This is fun. I can't believe that I wasn't even trying to do this. This is a fun gig. So I got in and worked in the jail and worked at the booking desk and the print and all the different stuff there, and learned a ton about court process and how to talk to inmates and how to deal with people that just don't really like you. You kind of learn a lot. You can learn a lot in a correction setting. And I left there and went to Hoover because you were spending about 5 or 6 years in the and I figured I always have my degree. I can always nurse if I decide to later on. So I'll just do this as long as I like it. So I did it like 28 years before I started working with Viking. But that being said, I got in, and Hoover's a very desirable place to work. Hoover Police Department is a great department. I feel, yeah, and I've said blessed several times, but I feel like God has just opened the doors for me where I was supposed to go. And every time I just get an opportunity, if it was like the one with Viking, when the door opened, it was like, if it's meant to be, it'll happen. It's the same thing with Hoover. When I left, I didn't think they would call me after I got my test results. I looked at them, I was like, they'll never call me with that. That was terrible. But obviously it was pretty high test score. I got hired pretty quick. And I got there, and I didn't know anything. I'd never worked the road other than that 2 weeks. And I'd gone through the academy and that stuff, and then went right to the jail. So I got hired by Hoover, and they sent me to epic pipeline convoy class, free training, hosted by, I can't remember who taught that class. I want to say it was a fellow from like South Texas. And I remember seeing the videos and the pictures of those seizures. And I was like, I want to do that. That looks like a great job. And we didn't have it. Nobody even thought about that stuff in Hoover at the time. So um, I just said every time I get an opportunity, and luckily Hoover was a department where they would send you to training if you found a training that was suitable. It was good police training. They would send you to it. So I went to Mike Lewis, who's a guru of interdiction from Maryland State Police at the time, now Wycomico County.
I just talked to him. I literally just got off the podcast with him about
Really?
4 minutes before we started.
You'll after you go to one of his classes, you'll want to run through a brick wall. Great guy, great, inspirational. I mean, he is. He made you want to do it. The more you heard him talk, the more fired up you got to do it. So I did that. I went to RCTA. I just did everything I could, and then they had and I in the meantime, I said, I need to learn how to be a policeman. So I worked as hard as I could. I tried to do a good job. I went call to call, take as many calls as you could get, and just learn. And I ended up being an FTO for a little bit. And I was still young, but I knew how to do all the stuff that they were asking to do. So I could tell the people how to fill out stuff. We would hire a lot of experienced people from other departments. So you couldn't teach a guy how to police when you've got 2 or 3 years of police experience. But you could show them with the paperwork you had to fill out and stuff like that. And I worked with some really talented and skilled people during the time, and most of them would tolerate my goofiness and me trying to work the interstate. So I was blessed to be able to, every time I got an opportunity, I would work my beat real vigorously and try to police it, make sure everything was handled, run up to the interstate, work a little bit, come back, work the beat a little bit more, go back. And every time I had a chance, I was trying to put something on the table seizure wise. And I didn't know what I was doing, but I was trying to learn. Road Warrior Interdiction Network was a big thing that I learned a lot of information from. And luckily some, I don't know if you know Jesse Peoples or Charlton Martin, guys, Chris Brown, guys that did interdiction with the state, Will Barnes, just good guys. Robbie Autry, he now works for the 17th Judicial. Those were guys that, you could talk to, pick their brain and learn a lot from. And I was just fortunate to have people that would listen to me and talk to me. Lanny Bergeron down in Louisiana State Police, John Trahan, Troy Dupuis, just good guys that would, you'd go to these conferences and you would talk to them and learn so much. You could learn more in a hospitality room drinking a free beer than you could ever learn in a classroom setting, because you would learn just so much detail from these guys that were just great interdictors. And I was just trying to be a sponge at the time. They had a K9 opening, and I was like, I need a K9 that'll help me do this. So I basically went in there and said, hey, give me the opportunity. I will work it as hard as I can to be productive. And I got my first police dog. He was a dual purpose dog named Nelson, Belgian Malinois, great dog. And he made me look good a lot of times. My K9 trainer said, man, you're just meat on the end of the line. The dog's making you look good everywhere you go. I was like, thank goodness somebody's got to help me through this. But so we got out there, and I finally got a decent seizure and almost let it walk away. Had 5 pounds of meth, and it was under the rear seat of a car. And it was a Blount County car, just kind of a local. It missed its drop, was coming back. I stopped it for like an expired tag and ended up having some warrants and stuff. We ended up starting to tow the car, and it had a warrant with another agency. And I'm going to help the guy do the tow in for the car, and look under the seat, and there's bricks of meth under there. There's five pounds of meth basically, or one. I think there were 2 pounds left. The guys had picked up 3 and were walking down the ramp and I said, well, y'all can go down there and call your ride if you want to go. I said, if you want to go right there, that's fine. So we ended up calling, hey, go down there and catch those guys. They ended up having more meth on them. So we ended up arresting those guys for the 5 pounds of meth. And that kind of like, wow, that's like local 5 pounds of meth case. That's a pretty good deal right there. We didn't have, and it wasn't really thought of that we had really sizable drugs like that around there. And as time went, I just kept working and get a little money, 17,000, 13,000, and stuff tied back to drugs. And would seize it. And then I had my old narcotics sergeant. I used to try to get time with our narcotics guys where I could go and just learn about how to write the reports. What do I need to say here? How's the best way to articulate this? Make sure we're making strong cases. And I got where I would just, if y'all need a car stopped, you're trying not to burn an informant, you call me, I'll go set up. And if I can get it stopped, I'll stop it before it ever gets there. And I get to work on my interview. I get to practice. And because the dope's there, they've ordered it. So, or it's supposed to be there at least. And so I did some of that. And Doug McKay was my sergeant at the time, narcotics sergeant, and I was in patrol. And he said, he just kept pestering the chief, like, let me have Ted for a little bit. Let's give it a whirl on the interstate. But if it wasn't for Doug McKay just sticking his neck out for me time and time again.
We are thrilled to announce that we have expanded our partnership with HPTRT. Now, if you use the code RED, you will get 50% off all of your purchases. HPTRT are the best in the game. They're founded by first responders, and they are targeting first responders, knowing that first responders need the most help. So if you need anything from peptides to hormones, TRT, even general health, they'll hook you up. I know most men my age are on some type of peptides or testosterone replacement therapy. I mean, no one ever wants to end up getting their ass kicked by Nolan Ryan, especially when Nolan Ryan was double Robin Ventura's age. So check out HPTRT. Use the code RED to get 50% off.
And during all that time, I was like, well, we're on a truck bypass around Birmingham. Nobody works trucks. We're on I-459. And I was like, that seems like that's kind of an untapped market for, if you go out here and work, you might have some success. And I found some little, user amounts and stuff like that in trucks, but nothing big. And I wasn't an inspector at the time. And when we got that kind of started our unit. We seized it. We went federal with it. And I wrote it up and ended up having to go down to McAllen and testify on a major league case with Robert Morrison, the guys down at Texas DPS. And Robert was, that's another guy that would tell you stuff and talk to you and share information and just a wealth of knowledge. That guy, he was better than a computer as far as remembering stuff. It's just incredible the amount of data he had in his brain about trucks and companies and what they were doing and what lot they were coming from or what little area storage building or whatever they came out of. And he'd tell you like, hey, there's probably a good shot. There's something there. So great friend and he would still call me till the time I basically retired. We'd get an occasional call from Robert like, hey partner, can you look for this? And we would do everything we could to help him and get it stopped. Because if he's talking to you, it's good information. He knows the game so well. So, but like I said, I was just, and right after I hit that 530,000, I ended up going to the DIOP conference, and Lanny Bergeron had hit that company multiple times, and I went up and talked to him, and he was just sharing information, and I talked to John and just Mark Mitchell with Georgia State Police, and then I just was so fortunate in the timing of it all. I think maybe just it was luck because of the timing. Not it's not luck for our country. Because 9/11, when it happened, it forced everything to ground. So everything was crossing the border, and it was in a car. And once I figured out how to find some compartments, it was really you could hit a time or two a week at times when we were really hot before it started kind of shifting and starting to go different routes again into the country. But it was a great time from basically we started full time in 2003. And March 6th of 03, I think is when it was. And April 2nd, I think of 03 is when we hit the big load of money. And then that went, just worked with some great guys, Lane Thompson, Brian Golson's the sergeant over the unit now, and it's still going today, which is, I'm proud of just being the kind of the OG member of it, but there've been such good and talented people come through there. And it's just, I was lucky to work with guys, and we had fun the whole time. It was it wasn't work, even though it was hard work. It was just fun. You're hanging out with your buddies, hunting real criminals, and I know you know the feeling when you're working with good guys.
Yeah.
It's a blessing.
It makes it that much fun. Yeah, it makes it. I mean, the job itself is fun, but when you have good people around you that have the same motivations and desires, like it makes the whole job just that much better.
Yeah. I remember though when it was first starting, and I was times where you would stop something and it was there. And I remember one night, and a guy that worked patrol with me, Scott Shirley, great, he got hired the same day I did with Hoover, and he would back me up and all the time on the highway. And just the poor guy, I kept him off his beat a lot because I kept pestering people on the highway, but he would always come up there. And one night I had a Crown Vic, and I could lower the armrest in that car and hit behind the armrest, and it sounded like I was hitting a bell. I mean, it was like a big metal plate behind there. It was like boom, and I'm yanking on the seat, shaking the car, and I can't get in it. I don't know what it is. I just know this is not right, and I can't get it. And the guy's about to pass out on the side of the road, and I'm sure the guy's still confused about why we let him go, because we're all over the compartment. But it was a rear seat trap. That's what it was. But I didn't know that at the time. But you look back on it, and it's like, that was a hydraulic control rear seat trap or a trunk lock. It had it locked on there because you couldn't budge the seat, and it was on like a steel plate or something. It was, but there's a lot of them I let walk away that I wish I could get some do-overs.
Yeah.
But now we have an X-ray. We didn't have that then. It was a flashlight and a screwdriver or a pry tool.
Yeah.
I still have my old snap-on pry tool that I used for years. I need to put it in a trophy case or something. It's found a lot of dope. So
That's awesome. What year did you start being the police?
I started in 96 with the sheriff's office, and I started with Hoover in 1998, June 29th of 1998, and I retired August 31st of 23.
Oh, wow. Okay. And then when did you go that first pipeline class?
It had to be my first year at Hoover, which I would assume was probably 99, probably that first. I got hired mid-year, so it was probably the first full year I was there.
And then
99, and I did a few years of working toward it. 2001, I got my first dog in October of 2001. I ended up handling 2 dogs. I handled dogs for about almost 15 years, 14 years and 10 months. When I got promoted to lieutenant, I retired my German Shepherd, Ellie. And she was a great narcotics dog, just a sweetheart. Nelson had you had to roll him about every 6 to 9 months when I first got him to get his mind right. He wanted to be the boss a lot of the times, but he was a big, thick. I think he was a sled dog in earlier life because he pulled me around like a little kid behind him. So he was a great dog though. 87 pounds of muscle.
I'm on my second dog. My first dog was a Dutch Shepherd, single purpose, but he single purpose in quotation marks.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I know how that goes. And then Brian kind of took over the K9 spot as I left. Brian Golson, who's the sergeant over the unit now.
So from the time you took class at like 1999, you were hitting, 5 pounds a month is a pretty sizable amount, but you were hitting those types of loads. And then all of a sudden in 2003,
I worked a lot and got better at writing reports and doing stuff. And, I might stop somebody for a kilo of Coke or something that our narcotics unit had ordered up, or a half key or a few ounces or something. And then I developed, I guess, my skill level enough to where they would trust me to come out and do stuff. And they were working wiretaps and things with some of the federal agencies around. And they had a big case, and he said, "Hey, can you stop this car for me?" I said, "Sure, if I can, I'll try." So I go set up and get one stopped, and he thought it was going to be a bag of money that the guy brought. It ended up being 1.5 kilos of Coke. And then that led to I started learning the attention to detail on pocket trash right there. When I was booking it, so I call him from the roadside after I get the guy secured and his partner secured. I'm like, "Hey man, this is like 1.5 kilos of Coke probably." And he's like, "Really?" And he said, "I thought that was going to probably be money." He said, "I'll hook him up, put him in there. I'll come talk to him." So I go take him to our jail, and I'm filling out the paperwork, but I'm going through their wallet. And I remember in his partner's wallet, there was a business card, and on the back of it, it had the driver's name, the main guy. It had his name or nickname on the back of the card with 2 phone numbers. So they asked for and received written consent to go search his house. Well, it takes a little bit of time to get everybody gathered up, and we're going to go search the house. We go out to another city across the county, get there, and his cousin lives there. The guy said, he doesn't live here, and I was like, that business card that has his name on the back has his phone number. So, and one of them looked like a residential number. So I call the jail, pull that wallet, give me that phone number, call dispatch, get them to cross it. They figure out that it's a house in Roebuck, which is just north of Birmingham. So we go over there and we get like 176 pounds of weed, like 15 pounds of meth, almost 200,000 cash. I mean, it's just, and the wife and the kids are leaving with like $40,000 in vacuum sealed as we're pulling up.
Wow.
So that kind of started. So it was little stuff along those lines, and then it just kind of led into give him a shot, and then we got. But I mean, I wouldn't take credit for any of those. I mean, if it hadn't been for patrol and stuff on the 5 pounds of meth, my goofy butt would have let it walk, And luckily, I interfered with the guy, and when he was trying to pick up the meth, or he would have walked away scot free, and I made him walk off from the car, get away from the car. We've arrested the 2 guys, and these guys didn't have warrants. There were 4 guys in the car, and that's what led to the 5 pounds of meth case. And then, so that wasn't really, that was just luck. And I'll have to say, luck served me well for many years. I worked hard. I tried to outwork because I figured what I didn't have in talent, I better make up for it in work ethic. So it served me well over the years. I've been a lucky guy.
Yeah, I always say, I mean, some of my buddies get annoyed because when I hit a load, I just send them the clover. And
Yes.
they're like, it can't be luck when you do this. I'm like, it's luck. It's like right place, right time. Opportunity meets itself. Like, but that's still a lot of luck. You got to be there at the right time. So that's a lot of luck and timing at minimum.
Absolutely, I agree 100%. Because all you've got to do is look away for 1 second, and I think some of the electronic things that we get nowadays with LPRs and using your MDT and the databases where you can look in TLO and Clear and things like that. I think we get too caught up in trying to really do stuff that should be on the back end of the case. We try to do it early on to make our stop, I guess, more robust when you first start it, where sometimes it's just best to watch traffic when you see that behavior, see what you can do. If you can get a violation, talk to them and see. Because I made a case. I go up and I'm chewing this truck driver's butt for running me off the road. He reached out, his notepad or something fell on the floorboard. So he reaches over, and I'm 3 lanes wide on I-20. But we joined the task force in 2005. So I'm on I-20 working up in Irondale area in Jefferson County. And the guy reaches into this floorboard. Well, he comes over on a flatbed truck, which comes over on me, pushes me into the grass. I mean, almost wrecks me out. And I'm like, I'm pissed. I'm a truck inspector at this time. So I go up and I go stop this bobtail truck. I get up there and I start basically getting on his butt, like, what are you doing? I dropped it. I'm sorry, and I start listening. I'm starting to ask him questions. I want to do a level 2 on him. And I start listening to what he's saying. I'm like, this is an interdiction stop. So there was 206 pounds of weed under his bunk and in his closet.
Wow.
And it just, blind luck will get you there sometimes. I mean, I don't know how, to put it other than that. So not sometimes, you got to work, you got to have the work ethic. You got to be stopping the cars. If you're not flipping the blue lights on and stopping stuff, you're never going to hit. So, but you don't need to just be blind, like a blind squirrel out there. Try to use a little science, play the odds, do what you can, work the right time of day, bounce your shifts around, try to look at what's going on around the country, what's hot, you need to look at, pay attention to that, work the roads. That was one of the reasons when we started working with the sheriff's office that our seizure totals went up. We started in January of 05, we started with Jefferson County Sheriff's Office working the joint task force. And then we'd had more dogs, more people, which helps. And then we had we could get on the side of the county where all the roads had converged again. So you're getting everything that's coming through, you're getting truck wise. And then on the other side, you could get it coming in and get it on the backside coming out. So it was a great, and we still work that task force today. It's been very beneficial, I think, for the folks in Jefferson County. I mean, we definitely have made people know we work that stretch of road, and there's not a lot of crazy driving in that section because there used to be a ton of fatalities on it, but now there's police on it a lot. So I think the fatality level has dropped a little bit in that general area for that. So
That's an awesome byproduct of it.
yeah.
You mentioned, you touched on technology. I think technology is amazing, but it also, we start to become so reliant on it. You know what I mean? So like, and we kind of lose that interpersonal communication skills. We kind of lose that, you know, because we're looking at everything and trying to have the perfect stop, when a lot of my seizures, I don't even run anything else. I'm like, oh, that's good reaction. I go put it on the shoulder, and then post stop, I'm like, well, you're lying because the LPRs are saying you're here. You're telling me you're here, you know, and
Yes.
it's like when I start to like dig and dig and dig and using TLO and all these other things before I even put a car on the shoulder, I feel like I miss things. You know what I'm saying?
I felt the same way.
Okay.
And as I got it, as that was really getting more and more popular, the more stuff that you would get, I was really kind of I got kind of promoted out of because I was out probably for about 4 years in there. I was going through different bureaus of the police department when I got promoted, and then worked my way back. But at the same time, you had so much more responsibility and so much more stuff you were dealing with. It was just really hard once you get promoted at a certain level to be, at least in my agency, it was just, you had other responsibilities that you had to deal with that you couldn't really focus like you needed to be. Because like I said, the best times were, it was me and my dog and our main goal. I wasn't a supervisor. It was just, my partners out there, and we're just watching for good traffic and stopping cars. And we didn't have LPRs. We barely had an MDT. I remember when we got MDTs in our car. And it was like, but that's how old I am. I mean, we didn't ride horses or anything, but I'm pretty old.
That's amazing. I mean, yeah, like
Yeah.
the past 20, 30 years in law enforcement, the technology, I can only imagine. You went from no computers to having like AI and automated plate readers and all that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, you can look at the tag and run it because it went right by you. And it's a great tool, but I think you've got to learn, I think in interdiction, you've got to learn to temper that a little bit, because it can still be a great tool and help you develop stuff. And it can help you find them after you've even stopped somebody and identified them. Use it like that, but don't try to eliminate the possibility of stopping one before you ever talk to them, because you never know what you're going to find out when you talk to them.
Yep. No, I think that's huge. What kind of motivations, or what kind of like who motivated you to do interdiction, or was it just that simple class that got you hooked?
I think it was that class more so than anything, and seeing that, and it just kind of lit a fire to like, I want to do that. And I really learned that, when you're making these smaller cases, you write probably longer, you write more paperwork than they spend time in jail. So it was like, I wanted to make bigger cases that had more of an impact, because, you can seize, how many dime bags does it take to make a ton of weed? I mean, it's a lot. You never, or you seize a ton of weed all at one time, you got all the dime bags,
Right.
so it's a lot better to do it that way. To me, you would make a bigger impact, because we were just outside Atlanta. So we're about 2 hours from Atlanta where we're at. So 2.5, and it would go there, get broke down and come back. I mean, some stopped in Birmingham, but a lot of it was getting broke down and coming back over. You'd get traffic coming from Memphis going to Atlanta. Birmingham's a more of a hub than it was, but it's still Atlanta. The big stuff is going over to Atlanta and getting broke down and coming back our way. Just like kind of like Houston, it comes off the border, gets to Houston, and breaks down and goes all over the place.
What'd you do outside of work that kept you kind of like level-headed?
I spent as much time as I could with my family. That's one of the things I look back and say, I probably needed to have taken more time off. I saved a lot of vacation time that I ended up cashing out, which is great at the end. But, I should have taken more vacation days and spent with my family. But as far as, I really just worked a lot. I worked probably 6 days a week in between off-duty work and stuff like that. I was just ended up being like my dad. I stood up. I worked a movie theater job for so many years. I think I was I should be drawing a pension from that place. I stood there so long, guarding them on the weekends. And but I mean, it was an easy gig, and it was easy money. And my kids, I wanted to send them to good school, and so I sent them to school and used the money to pay for that. And so I just had a lot of opportunities. I worked as much as I could, and I just had a goofy attitude. It was really, I just enjoyed it. It wasn't even like, to me, like, I enjoyed going to work. Every day was like you go load up and go to work, and it was a fun time. What can we get into today? So
Same. Yeah. Same here. And then, any of your kids get into law enforcement, or did it kind of die with you?
no, I basically made my son, and my daughter's 30 now. My son is 25. My son gets married in April. And I basically, they got medical type field stuff. My son sells hips and knees and shoulders and stuff like that. He started a job there, so he's doing real well. He's about to get married to a young lady in August 26th. He gets married, so it's all right around the corner. So, but yeah, they don't do the law enforcement side, and I'm grateful for that because I think it's changed, and I can only imagine the change my dad saw, through his years, and then what I saw, it just got rough. I think it'll swing back. I think it'll get better with time. I hope, because it was there toward the end, a lot of protests, a lot of craziness, a lot of hate for the police, and you hate to see that because I never took it personal when these guys were running stuff. I'm not mad at you. I'm just doing my job. I'm not trying to, but you're out here breaking the law. You're doing stuff, and it's I'm doing my job, not getting upset with you or mad at you about it, just doing my job.
Yeah, that I never do. I always look at it. It's almost like my job's to catch you, your job's to get away, and you probably beat me more times than I ever beat you. So like,
Absolutely, yeah. When you think about it, we're probably only getting a small fraction, but it makes a difference, and it keeps them honest. I hope that we're doing a little bit, I mean, if you get one big seizure of fentanyl now, and drugs have changed.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when I started, it was pretty simple. You found bales of weed, you found, bricks of cocaine, you started seeing meth and stuff it came back while I was there, then heroin, now fentanyl, carfentanil, all the different drugs and the crazy, designer drugs, and then K2 spice. And it's a hard game now. It really is, compared to what it was, and it's dangerous. I remember drilling into compartments and, white powder falling out on you. I mean, heck, today you may not ever crawl out from under that drill bit.
Yeah.
So
Fentanyl, I mean, yeah, pure fentanyl's
yeah.
white, just like
yeah, exactly. You drill into a compartment and we never considered it at the time. I mean, but you'd find the compartment, you knew it was there, and you're like, well, let's just test it. And you drill a hole, and if you hit a kilo, you get powder, and if you were under it, you might get rained on just a little bit. So it didn't happen a lot, but it could happen. So
what do you think has changed in law enforcement? Not only necessarily on the criminal aspect of it, but the judicial system and the cops aspect of it.
I think that the marijuana side has really changed dramatically more than anything that we've seen. And it's now, marijuana is so strong, it's changed. And then there's just a lack of prosecution for anything. I can understand if you want to let the little stuff ride, but I mean, we're seeing bigger cases that just seem to die in the court system. They just didn't want to prosecute the weed cases. And that was probably the biggest frustration that I started developing as time went. And that's not being mean. It's just, I think you're seeing it across country. I don't know what the answer is to that. If it's going to be like all across the board, legalize it and tax it and do whatever. But I don't see how you can do that until you can figure out a way to test somebody like we can with blood alcohol, where they can breathe into something and say, oh, he's too high to drive a car. I mean, if you legalize it, how are you going to control somebody from killing your whole family that's too high to be driving around?
Yeah. And I think even if they do legalize it, I mean, at this point, I think that's probably the best bet is some type of legalization nationwide. But there's still going to be a black market. There's still black market cigarettes. There's still black market alcohol. So there's just going to be another one of those items that are going to be a black market item, because as soon as they start taxing it, people are going to find a way to avoid those taxes.
You're exactly right. And I don't know the answer. And now you see these states that legalize it basically, where they can grow it and do stuff. And then they're growing it, and they're growing enough to ship to other states so they can make the big profits there. they're just doing the minimal over here, and then they're shipping stuff out the back door
Yeah.
to other states and making the big money. And it's a crazy game, but everybody, that's how it works. That's how criminals work. They find a way around it, whatever you do, and they're going to keep doing their thing. So that's what criminals do. Young ones become old criminals.
Yeah.
They get
No,
smarter.
yeah, but the black market weed is a very interesting thing, because I think it's not even, I don't know, if you start to break it down, there's a lot of people that are owning the grows that aren't even American citizens. So like, I'm like, I just don't even understand. I know that there's a lot of people in Oklahoma that have a lot of influence of like Chinese nationals and stuff along those lines. I'm like, man, like that's where it gets scary to me. It's like, even if we were to federally make it legal, these people don't value our values that are actually growing these massive grows. So I just, they're not going to care. They're not going to abide by it. You can get to go with this potency or, this much at a time. It's still going to be a free for all. I don't know what the answer is with weed. It's a challenge.
Yeah, I don't either. It's complicated in law enforcement. And now the vape cartridges and the stuff like that. I mean, you can have it right in front of your face. What are they really smoking? I mean, how do you test this stuff? It gets more and more complicated. And you're looking at, we have a foxhound with Viking, and the X-ray that helps you find stuff in compartments and the different tools that you can use. But the bottom line of it is, it's just a complex and complicated game. How do you touch it? And how do you test it? And some agencies just get where they don't want to even test it. They're scared they're going to, poison one of their officers. And it's complex. It really is. And it's dangerous nowadays, more dangerous than it was.
Our state won't even, so if you get a weed case, our state does not test the difference. So like the amount of THC. So if we get like, they're adamant that it's CBD or whatever, like I don't even know what they're going to do, but they don't have the capabilities to test the potency of the THC. So I'm like, we're in a trick bag right now. I'm like, I don't know what we're going to do. Like if everyone starts pushing the issue of everything's got to be tested that we're charging them with, like, and not even the big cases, to just look at like personal use stuff. If we're charging like if they push the issue, I don't know what the hell we're going to do.
We would have to find a third party lab to test stuff when we had like a vape shop selling stuff over the counter, and we had to send it around to get a test result that was viable enough to say, we can charge them, we need to do this, and we need to shut them down or do what, because the the labs, the DFS is so backlogged.
Yep.
It'll, or are you going to let the guy sell it for another year and a half before you make a move on it? I mean, it's a bad situation. It really is. I don't know what the answer is, but, and then I'm more shocked that people on the vape stuff, who knows what they're putting in that stuff.
I agree.
I mean, to me, it's just so dangerous. You don't know. I think it was George that tested positive for fentanyl inside one of those. That's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. With the drug trafficking organizations, I just don't understand the rationalization, unless it's like they want to push the envelope so far to almost kill all their clientele, but then like take it back one step. That's what I feel like.
Yes.
Like I'm gonna take it, and like if too many people die, like we saw carfentanil for a short period of time, and I think that they realized a bunch of people are dying from it, and now we don't see it anymore. And I'm thinking that they push that envelope so far, they're like, oh no, too far. Let's back it up a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think that they want to push that envelope and getting people at a young age addicted, but through THC to man, it's scary to think about.
Yeah. Nitazene is another that's like that, and most officers that I've talked to, and I travel all over the place. Most of them haven't even seen it, and it's out there, and it's stronger than fentanyl.
Yeah. And the only time I've seen it, it was a load of fentanyl, and then they were going to use that as cut. So they were separate, but it was like, and that's, I mean, it's insane to me. I don't get it. I just went to a Wisconsin narcotics conference, and there was a guy that came in and he talked, and he said the next biggest push is they're making fake Adderall with methamphetamine in them. So like, how they make the fentanyl pills? Now they're making Adderall pills just like it with their pill presses. And I'm like, God, that's going to be a disaster in this country.
Yeah. And how hard is that to find? You have to have a trace detector it'll be able to find that. And then you have to, like, what puts you down the trail? And are you testing this guy's real Adderall, or how do you make a determination the ones you want to test? And it's really complicated. I guess, like when we were seeing fentanyl pills, you could tell.
Yeah.
I mean, you could tell looking at the pill. It's just not lab grade. It didn't look like, so you could test the powder and with a trace detection tool and figure it out. So
I'm sure the Adderall will probably be similar to that. Like, not the quality won't be as good, but it's still just, I mean, as kids, so many of them take Adderall, and if they were the doctors would be like, no, and all of a sudden you could go buy them on the street and you're not buying Adderall, but they look the same and it's it's methamphetamine. Like, oh man,
and that's scary because they already abuse Adderall.
Yeah.
So I mean, you think you're going to just get an Adderall, and you next thing you know, you're using meth.
Yeah,
know,
and then
you're
like, well, this Adderall that I got from the doctor doesn't do anything, but this one from him, looks great or whatever.
I'm good for 2 days. I'm running for 2 days straight. It's a different ball game than it was when I started, for sure, because you could look at the packaging, the way it was concealed, the shape of the package, and it was like weed, coke, meth, and it was just a piece of cake. And now it's just, you never know what you're touching now. So it's a more dangerous than it was, for sure.
How did you feel when you left law enforcement?
My wife was happier than I was. I miss interdiction. I even toyed with the idea of trying to go back and be like a reserve or something, just so I could go back and work the highway a little bit without the responsibility, just go out and work. And then I started thinking about it. I said, I went through 28 years, arrested a bunch of bad dudes. I said, and I've got a good job. My wife would probably kill me if I went back and did this. And so I would probably die anyway it went. But I was like, I dodged a lot of bullets, a lot of cars. I didn't get shot at. I didn't have to shoot anybody. I came out on the back end. I feel like God watched out for me every step of the way. And there were some bad dudes in the time that, we arrested. And when you come out the backside, and it was just a perfect career, I couldn't ask for better. I always wanted to be promoted to lieutenant. I got promoted to lieutenant. I figured that was my target rank when I started. I thought, this looks like a good rank. I think I'm going to try to be a lieutenant before I retire. I did that. I did it for 7 years. I got to be over the interdiction team. I got to be over narcotics and crime scene and just different stuff. And I learned a lot. I worked for a great department, and they made me they spent enough money training me where I think they made a decent policeman out of me. I did a pretty decent job for them for years. And I missed the people more than anything, the job. And I think toward the end, with the protest and the sheer volume of hours that we put in, we had a mall shooting, and that was a lot on our agency. After that happened, it was, our guy was justified in the end, and everything was fine. But it was very unfortunate situation. Luckily, no more people got hurt in the mall than it started out, but it was a full-blown shootout, and we ended up shooting a fellow in the mall, and it was just a bad. It was a bad thing, and it caused, they were bringing people. I ended up in one of the protests getting my nose broke. We were getting spit on and fought with, and just, it was crazy times. And I look at the back end, I got through all of that and never really got hurt severely. Some stitches, some bruises and boo-boos, nothing that Neosporin and Band-Aids wouldn't fix up. So I felt like maybe God watched out for me as long as he was supposed to, and I'll do this for now.
Was that during like the COVID era of the protests?
Yeah. Well, that was right at the COVID time, maybe right after or right before COVID, I guess, is when that started. Yeah, probably right before COVID.
Okay.
And then that was, that actually probably helped us a little bit, because things slowed down so much with COVID. It just kind of took the air out of a lot of stuff. We were a big retail area, so when it affected shopping and things around there, when the shooting happened, and people didn't want to get in the middle of all that craziness.
So you missed the people that you worked with the most. What about the, I guess, the dopamine hits from finding loads and stuff?
Oh yeah, you definitely miss that. That is and I just talking to guys, I think you get so addicted to the adrenaline of it but as you've gone through a long career, I did interdiction for a long time. So close to 20 years of interdiction. And you find the big stuff, and there's some that really are still just very satisfying, but you've hit so many big things over time, you don't get that same adrenaline dump toward the end that you used to get. And I don't know if that's normal or if I just got old. And I was talking to one of the guys the other day, and I was talking about, you arrest a guy for capital murder warrant, and when I first started policing, you get nervous and sound like a little girl squealing on the radio. You can have a car chase after a few years of doing this stuff, be talking on a cell phone, a police radio, chasing somebody, and just perfectly calm. And I don't know if I think it's so much adrenaline has coursed through your body over that career that it just doesn't affect you the same anymore. I still enjoyed it. And there's some that are very satisfying. I remember standing there with the bad guy and looking over at the trunk of a car one day. He had 11 kilos in a floor trap in the trunk, or a trunk compartment, false floor in the trunk. And I look over and I see the primer spray paint in there. And I ask him, and I go over there and I hit the floor, and I said, there, you need an x-ray right there. There were 11 kilos around the wheel well of the Altima. So it was like, that was satisfying because I did it from standing there shooting the shit with the bad guy, and you just walk up there and find it. So while your guys are, you say like, hey, y'all search right there. It's in there. So those little things are satisfying just because you say, well, I guess I still can do it. I'm old, but I can still find something every once in a while. So, but I just didn't get the road time at the end, and you can't because you had so many other things you were doing. You're not just over interdiction anymore. So you're doing narcotics, you're doing interdiction, crime scene, or whatever other assignments you've got, meetings and stuff like that.
So once you get to that lieutenant level, you're more behind the desk type thing?
At least a couple of days a week for sure.
Yeah.
You're in the office, and then and just stuff you have to take care of. We were going through toward the end. We did a CLIA accreditation, and that's another just that's fun. Lots of policy, so you can write a policy about the policy. That was not as much fun as it sounds. But so we did a lot of that, but like I said, I had a great career. I couldn't ask for better. I'm shocked that anybody wants to hear anything about my career, but it's, as far as starting, I think the biggest thing is like, when the young guys are trying to start a unit, do your best not to tear up something, to get the legs cut out from under your unit before you ever start. Try to do it right. Be straight. Don't violate anybody. Learn the game, learn the law, learn search and seizure. And because you're walking a tightrope, and understand that length of detention is just getting more and more stringent. You've got to move. You can't be out here just, go. And like I've told most people over the years, when you see it, after you see it a time or two, when you walk up to the car, typically in that first 30 seconds, you'll be like, come on up here. This is a good one, and that's how it worked. And it did it for years. Sometimes I had to make myself slow down, especially when I was younger. It'd be like, you want to go ahead and just go straight into consent. Well, let's lay a little more groundwork here before we don't get ahead of myself. I need to slow this thing down and actually do my job first. That's things that I would say for young guys. Don't go tear up somebody's stuff if you don't know, and that was one I was lucky. I always wanted to, please Lord, give me a duffel bag, of something hidden in one of these things so I can find it and not have to tear up something. And that's how it happened. And you build up a little credit, and then they start trusting you. And so when you take one apart, I remember I got a call from an agency next door to us, and I was doing interdiction pretty vigorously at this point. They call, hey, can you come over and run your dog? I think we've got an intake on this Jeep. I'm like, sure. I'll come up there, run my dog. It hits right where his dog did. And he said, we think it's here. I'll look at it. And I've never taken an intake of manifold off of a Jeep, but looking at it, looking at everything that I'd learned from schools, that's a compartment. I can see where it's blocked off in there. And so we start taking it apart in their shop. And here comes their lieutenant walking in, and he sees us, and we're pulling wires and hoses and stuff and got an air ratchet. And he's like, it's like he just comes in and does an about face and walks right back out. I don't even want to see it. And he turns around and walks out. And it had money in it. It was a good seizure, but it was just the look on his face when he saw us tearing that guy's intake manifold off of his car. But I mean, I didn't want to do it until I knew. I mean,
Right.
you go. It's scary to supervisors when you start doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think communication there too helps. Like if you can explain why you're doing it to your supervisor as a younger, like listen, like
Yes.
I know this is abnormal, this isn't normal, and if you just don't say, well, because I think so. Like so, if you explain
Yes.
this up, your
Yes.
boss is be like, okay, maybe you have some more credit than I don't know. I don't know what an engine looks like, but you're explaining it. It makes sense to me, and I trust that you're going to do the right thing.
I give my department credit. For a guy that really, when I first started, I didn't know much. They listened to me a lot, and they gave me a little bit of credit, and I did my best not to put them in bad spots. And we did good. It all turned out fine in the back end. And like I said, knowing somebody to call and ask, it always helps. I talked to so and so. I send them pictures. They say that's a compartment. That helps. It helps a lot. So when you're young, ask questions, be hungry, study it nonstop, get on, NIC, Desert Snow, these podcasts, anyway, go to your training, go to Jeremy's training, go to anybody's training, go to all of it you can go to, soak in everything you can and you're going to develop your own style out of it.
Yeah.
But learn as much as you can and know the law backwards and forwards. For like when I first started working trucks, all I had was Title 32, which is the traffic code for Alabama to work trucks. As time went by, I went and got certified, to do truck inspections, and I did that for about 12 years. But that was I love inspecting trucks. I love trucks. Trucks to me are the most fun to work. I loved it.
Challenging, the most challenging.
They are, but when you hit, man, they're so good. They're so good. When you hit a big truck, it's a very satisfying thing, and normally it's not a little seizure. When you hit a big truck, there's normally a nice trophy shot at the end of it. You get a big stack of kilos or bales of weed or millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands for sure. So it's always satisfying to catch them in their game and to catch it when it's a massive one. I always say load it up, but I've missed a bunch too. So
I think we all have in this game missed a bunch.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the learning and growing process. If someone's out there saying they've never missed a load, they're full of shit.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. If they say that, they've never done this. I specifically remember one night or one day, it was me and Lane working up on 59, which is just north of Birmingham, coming into Birmingham from the Northeast. And I'm talking to this guy, and it's jacked up. It's a bad story. The whole shooting match, I got the guy out, and I've done the inspection. I'm basically laying it out, any drugs or guns. And I asked him about money, and this guy breaks out in goosebumps from his ears to his fingers. And I'm like, I start pointing at it. Like I just raised my finger up and I'm pointing at and Lane can see it. He's like 15 feet away, standing there, because we would get away. We wouldn't like crowd around when we asked for consent. We didn't want it to look like we were trying to coerce him. So Lane's standing off, and I start pointing at it, and Lane can see the goosebumps too. That we missed it. This guy had a load of old diesel truck engines in a reefer trailer, and this was, I think, before we ever had X-rays. But I wish I had one, because I guarantee it was in the floor. It could have been in one of the engines. I don't know, but I did see where that company got hit with like 2.7 million, I think, in a state east of us.
Wow.
About 6 months to a year later. And I was like, I guarantee you that was the same one I had. I would love to, if I could get a few do-overs, it would be great. But those are the biggest regrets, when you have something like that and it's right there and you can't figure it out. And I don't know what the answer would have been at the time, but I don't know how to move all those engines out of the way to do it. It would have taken me days to offload that thing.
Yeah.
And it was like they greased the top of all of them. I walked in it. I searched the best I could, but could not figure out where to get into it. Didn't know if it was in the engines, in the walls, in the floor. Makes sense. It's in the floor. And that's where they found that big money load.
That's other than
East.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So wish I had a do-over.
I always use the two sayings like, know what you can and can't do, because it makes everything else easy. So like, know the law And then that makes you don't have to sit there and think like as you're having conversations with people, can I do this? Can I say this? Like you already know,
Yes.
have that
Yep.
foundation of what you can and can't do. Now
Mhm.
everything else comes second nature. And I always say like these young guys want like the quick answer. And I'm like, no matter what anyone teaches you, you have to go out there and apply it because you have to understand what normal is before you'll ever see abnormal.
Yeah.
You can go to a million classes until you apply what you're being taught. You're not going to see it yourself. You have to see it firsthand. So go stop 1,000 cars.
Yep.
Like, and eventually
Amen.
that
Yes.
one is going to stand out and be like, boy, I just stopped all these cars for all these infractions, and this is how they all went. And all of a sudden, this one's completely different from the rest.
Yep. Absolutely. The first I talked about that 530,000 a couple of times already. One more time, and I didn't know what I was dealing with. I just knew it wasn't right. And I said, the guy that was working with me on the day, I didn't even have an assigned partner at the time, and he was working in patrol, and they had an extra guy, so they allowed him come work with me. He said, "Hey, I'm gonna go check my email." It's the end of the day. I said, "I want to work for a few more," and I end up stopping this truck for following too close. I get up there, and this guy starts breaking out in hives. He's hyperventilating. I mean, he is dressed in like a pair of polo shorts, a polo, and little flip flop, fancy flip flop. He does not look like a truck driver at all. He's from Fontana, California. The truck's from Far, Texas, and I'm listening to the story this guy's giving me, and it makes no sense. And he's about to. I asked him twice if he needed the medics, and he refused them both times. And I call. I said, "Hey man, come back up here with me. I don't know what's going on with this guy, but it's not right." So I go through the spiel. What you got? Marijuana. You got any more marijuana, cocaine, methamphetamine, heroin, whatever. Go through ask him about currency. He says, "Nope. All I got is $200." Pulls his wallet out and shows me $200 bills in his wallet. And I said, "Okay, well, you mind if I search and the truck and the trailer and all this?" And he's, "No, go ahead." He presents it and lets me go. I go up there, and under a load of dirty clothes is a duffel bag that weighs about 50 or 60 pounds of
Wow.
vacuum sealed cash. But I knew it wasn't right. And when you first start, I think the biggest thing is trying to figure out how to articulate that. It is very hard to say exactly what you're seeing. You need to go to the training so you can put some science to what you're seeing. But after you get a little bit of that training and you see it a few times, and after that, like I said, it's typically just obvious. When you get up there and you start talking to them, you're like, "Oh, it's here. I just got to find it." And then you call your partner up there and go from there.
Was the semi loaded or was it empty?
Oh, that one was loaded. It had 530,000 in that. And
No, I mean like a legitimate load wise.
it had a load of frozen turkey coming from Raleigh, North Carolina.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. Frozen turkey. I'll always remember that one. I was jumping up and down on the side of the interstate. And another thing is treat it like a major case, because when it is, and don't go, print everything, take pictures of everything, call crime scene, treat it like if you had a homicide. Document, write a thorough report. Don't be sloppy and lazy on the back end, or you're not going to win the cases. And the thing about that case, I had to go to McAllen, Texas, and testify about that guy and his dad, who were like a ring of cocaine smuggling thing, a huge, mega. They got like, I think 25, 35 years apiece in
Wow.
federal prison for what they did over the years. But I got called, and that was my first ever big seizure. And I was like, and I remember being stressed writing the report, because I was like, man, I hope I did a good job on this, because I don't know what I'm doing. And there was nobody really there to kind of compare it to. You call and talk to people and ask them questions, but they weren't there. It's hard for them to give you the answers to what you need to write in your report. So, but
Yeah.
thorough, follow your video, do it step by step, and get your routine. And as you develop your routine, do it all the same. As close to the same as you can, so it's always it's a system that you're running.
Yep. Well, we try to keep this about an hour, so we're almost getting there, but we always end with two questions. The
Yes.
first one I'm going to ask you is, what is your most memorable seizure? And it doesn't have to be your biggest, but like maybe there's something funny, anything along those lines. Most memorable.
The most, and it's a huge one. It's kind of a long story, but this is how it went. And it ended up being a very nice seizure. It wasn't my biggest cash seizure, but it was a little over $1 million. in a truck, and it was in the sidewalls of the cab of a car hauler. Lane Thompson and myself were sitting side by side watching traffic, and I hear this truck's Jake brake hit just a little bit as he comes into our view right here. And I'm like, I said, hey, you want that? And he goes, nah, you can have it. And I said, all right. I pull out, I go up there, I look at it, and it's got like a tag light violation or something, but I always try to get a violation to go with doing the truck inspection if I could. I get him stopped and I start talking to him, and this guy's just jabbering like crazy. He will not shut up. He tells me about a dope case that he got popped with in Montgomery, Alabama. And I'm like, look, man, I said, I'm just trying to do a trucking. I said, I appreciate you telling me all that, but I'm just trying to, let me get this from you and this and this. And then he just keeps nonstop talking, diarrhea of the mouth. And I'm like, okay. So I get the truck, all the stuff. I go back to my truck. Lane calls. He said, hey, you need anything? I said, yeah, come on up here. This is pretty good. When I'm standing on the step, I look up and there's a Ford Ranger on this truck, and it's got one handprint. It's like if you were going to make the turkey as a little kid, to do for, Thanksgiving, like somebody stuck their hand in mud and just stuck it on the bottom of this Ford Ranger fuel tank, which is right above the cab of this Peterbilt. And you can look up and see the handprint. And it was like, well, that's weird. And it's a weird place for the handprint. So I'm assuming they did that on purpose just to bait you off of where the money was. So we get it. So Lane gets there. We start searching in the cab. He said, I'm going to go up here and look at this truck. I said, okay. And I find the screwdriver and I see tooling on the side panels. So I open it, 42 vacuum sealed bundles of cash. And this guy still wouldn't shut up. And he just jabbering. I go back and I said, hey man, we found, I said, how much is it? He just like, he kind of, I don't know anything about it. I said, I can tell by the look on your face, you know something about it. I said, I'm not asking you to give me. He said, well, you guys hit bingo. He said, that's over $1 million. And I was like, really? And he goes, yeah. So we pull it all out. Well, a year to the day, we go to Falfurrias, Texas. I'm in a class with Mike Temez, me, Lane, Brian Golson, who's now the sergeant. And we're standing at a checkpoint, basically showing the Border Patrol guys what we see and what we're dealing with on trucks. And this guy pulls through in another car hauler. And I go, hey, Lane, look at this. He pulls up. This is another story of how I screw stuff up all the time. The first thing I touch on this truck, well, he sees us and he goes, what are y'all doing here? And I go, we just came down to see you, Fernando. And he goes, and he stops, and the Border Patrol guy asks him a question. He goes, and then he just stops mid-sentence. He goes, no, really, what are y'all doing here? I said, we're just working, buddy. So we go over. We ended up taking the truck into secondary. We go over. The first thing I touch on this truck is a hydraulic fluid tank that works all the hydraulics on the tank, the car hauler trailer. I pull the top off. I'm looking at it. I kind of sniff it. It just doesn't look right. It looks like almost like the lid has been wiped off of this thing. And so I'm starting to give it some attention. And Lane calls because he goes into the into the tractor. He finds all the foam from the sidewalls has been pulled out and it's laying under the bunk. And I'm like, well, maybe he's just going to go get another load of money. And there are people crawling all over this truck and trailer. And it has no cars on it. It's just an empty trailer. And so I get out and I do not go back and finish that tank. Well, a little bit later, Mike Temez, he gets a call and says, hey, did y'all just stop a truck? Because a buddy called so-and-so and said that he got stopped and searched, but they didn't find it and he's on the way. And I'm like, it's that tank. I'm telling you, it's that tank. And so we get Texas DPS to stop it further up the road. And he had swapped the tags front and rear of the truck and trailer after he got past the checkpoint.
Wow.
And was steaming northbound, but we'd sent a picture of the truck. So when he found it, he goes to that tank. There were 50 kilos of cocaine in that.
Oh my gosh.
So this guy, I always classify him as the world's worst smuggler. But to me, and that's another reason I don't want to go to like Mexico or something, because I believe in the small world principle. I don't want to I don't want to find myself zip tied on a piece of plastic just by accident. So, I mean, it probably would never happen in a million years, but just to make sure, I was 17, 18 hours away from my house and found a guy a year to the day of getting him with $1 million plus with 50 keys. Even though I did everything I could to miss it, but we got him caught further up the road.
Crazy.
So That is a crazy story, but it's a great game. It's cat and mouse. It's awesome. But having good connections and knowing people to be able to network around the country, that's the key to getting it done. And it's better to get the dope and the money and the bad guys off the street, no matter who's getting the credit for it.
That's funny because I'm not as great as yours, but occasionally I'll go down and work I-70 with the troopers down there, and I was down there working a detail with them, and there's a guy that was running money from my area to the West Coast, weed guy. So I popped him up here. A year later, I'm down there, and he's driving a motorhome, and the thing that stood out, he had a thin blue line like emblem right above his.
Yes.
I'm like, let me see. I run the plate, and he popped up in my system as the guy. So I get him stopped, and again, he had money. He's like, and he was pissed. He was so pissed, like watching the camera. He's like, I don't understand why you are down here. Like, I don't know. Yeah. It's a great video, though.
Yeah, it's crazy how it happens.
Yeah.
I saved a guy one time that was driving a truck, and he was listed as kidnapped, and I stopped him, and he wasn't kidnapped. He had just somehow vanished, and they couldn't find him. So I stopped him in that truck. Like 6 months later, I stopped him in another truck. And then like 6 months later, I ended up stopping him in another truck. I had no clue. I'm just stopping trucks to do inspections. And I keep walking up. I'm like, man, if you were a bad dude, I can find you anytime. I'm shocked I hadn't found him again since I retired. What is your other question you got for me?
Oh yeah, last one. We teach for a company called Justice Academy.
Yes.
So what is your definition of justice?
Justice is being held accountable for your actions, I guess would be. I guess that's the best way. I don't know the answer to that for sure, but if true justice is if you do something terrible, that you're brought to court and you're processed, not anything personal, and you're held responsible for your actions in a court of law, in accordance with the law, and straight down the line in a fair and impartial manner.
Yep. I like it. That's usually kind of the fair and impartial aspect of it. That's kind of where everyone goes with it.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you joining me, man. And now that I have
you, it's a pleasure to talk to you, man.
Yeah, 100% my pleasure. If you ever need anything, I don't know what you need from me, but if you ever need anything, I'm always here for you.
Same here. You know what we do, and I'm grateful to work with these guys. And if you need anything out of us, I'm still around. My phone's always on, so you got my number. You call anytime. If I can help you any way in Alabama, you let me know.
I appreciate it.
Take care, buddy.
Take it easy.
Hey, thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.